Derek had always believed that the past stayed in the past. He had built his entire adult life on that assumption. 3 years at the downtown advertising firm had given him stability, respect, and a comfortable routine. He knew every coffee order his colleagues preferred, every shortcut through the morning traffic, and exactly how to navigate office politics without making waves. That Monday morning started like any other. Derek arrived at 8:30, grabbed his usual black coffee from the break room, and settled into his desk by the window. The entire floor was buzzing with whispers about the new creative director. Apparently, she was some kind of genius who had turned around 3 failing agencies in 5 years. People were both excited and nervous. The meeting was scheduled for 10. Derek walked into the conference room with his notepad, finding a seat near the back. He liked to observe first, speak later. That strategy had served him well. The room filled quickly, 20 people packed around the long table, all waiting to meet the woman who would be reshaping their department. She walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. Confident stride, sharp blazer, dark hair pulled back in a way that meant business. She introduced herself as Isabella, spoke briefly about her vision for the team, and then her eyes swept across the room. When her gaze landed on Derek, something shifted. Just for a second, maybe 2, her professional mask slipped. Her eyes widened slightly, recognition flashing across her face like lightning. Derek felt his stomach drop. He knew that face, not from work, not from college, but from somewhere buried deep in his memory, somewhere he had deliberately locked away. The meeting continued, but Derek couldn't focus. His mind was racing, trying to place her. Isabella asked questions, assigned projects, made jokes that got polite laughter. She was good at her job. That much was obvious. But every few minutes, her eyes would drift back to Derek, and each time it felt like she was trying to tell him something without words. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out talking about first impressions and new expectations. Derek stood up slowly, hoping to slip out unnoticed. He was almost at the door when he heard her voice behind him. "Could you stay back for a moment?" It wasn't a question, not really. Derek turned around, his heart hammering against his ribs. The room had emptied. It was just the 2 of them now, and the air felt heavy with unspoken words. Isabella walked closer, her heels clicking on the floor. She stopped about 3 feet away, close enough that he could see the tiny scar above her left eyebrow, close enough that he suddenly remembered exactly where he knew her from. "You recognize me," she said quietly. Not a question, a statement. Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. His throat felt dry. "I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. Ocean Ridge, 12 years ago. The summer rentals near the boardwalk." The name hit him like cold water. Ocean Ridge, the beach town where his family used to vacation every July. The place he associated with sunshine, freedom, and one specific summer that ended in disaster. "You're Sophia's sister," Derek said, the words coming out almost like an accusation. "Isabella Sophia Rodriguez," she corrected. "I went by my middle name back then. Started using my first name in college." Derek took a step back, bumping into a chair. His mind was flooded with memories now. Summer nights, bonfires on the beach, the taste of salt air and cheap beer. And Sophia, 16 years old with wild laughter and eyes that made him forget everything else existed. "What are you doing here?" he asked, and it came out harsher than he intended. Isabella's expression didn't change. She reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out her phone, tapping the screen a few times before holding it up. It was a photograph, slightly faded, clearly taken from an old print. It showed a group of teenagers around a bonfire. Derek could see himself in the background, 17 years old and stupid. "We need to talk," Isabella said, her voice steady but urgent. "Not here, not now, but soon." "About what?" "That was 12 years ago. We were kids." "About what happened that night. The real story. The one you've been trying to forget." Derek felt ice spreading through his chest. "I don't know what you're talking about." Isabella stepped closer, so close now that she could have been whispering secrets. Her eyes locked onto his, and he saw something there he hadn't expected. Not anger, not accusation, but something more complicated. something that looked almost like desperation mixed with hope. "My brother spent 2 years locked up for something he didn't do," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "His entire life was destroyed. And you were there. You saw everything." "I didn't see anything," Derek said automatically, the light coming easily after years of practice. "Yes, you did." Isabella's jaw tightened. "And I think part of you has been carrying that weight ever since. I can see it in your eyes right now." Derek wanted to leave, to run, to pretend this conversation never happened. But his feet wouldn't move, because she was right. He had been carrying something, a heavy stone in his gut that he'd learned to ignore, but never actually got rid of. "There's a cafe 2 blocks from here," Isabella said, pulling back slightly, giving him space to breathe. "Rosie's, with the blue awning. Tomorrow, 7 in the morning, before work. Just give me 1 hour. If you still want nothing to do with this after hearing me out, I'll never bring it up again. I'll transfer departments if I have to. But please." 1 hour. She turned and walked toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. She looked back over her shoulder, and in that moment Derek saw the girl he used to know, the one who could make him laugh until his sides hurt, who taught him to body surf, who kissed him under the pier while fireworks exploded overhead. "I'm not here to ruin your life, Derek," she said softly. "I'm here because my brother's life is already ruined, and you might be the only person who can help fix it. Think about it." Then she was gone, leaving Derek alone in the conference room with his racing thoughts and the ghost of a summer he'd spent 12 years trying to forget. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair, his hands shaking slightly. Tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock. 1 hour. Derek already knew he would be there. Derek didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that summer, the beach house his parents had rented, the freedom of being 17 with a whole summer stretching ahead, and Sophia, always Sophia, with her quick smile and fearless way of diving into the waves. He arrived at Rosie's at 6:45, too anxious to wait any longer. The cafe was quiet, just a few early morning regulars reading newspapers and sipping coffee. Derek chose a table in the back corner, away from the windows, and ordered black coffee he didn't really want. Isabella walked in at exactly 7. She traded her power suit for jeans and a simple sweater, making her look more like the girl he remembered. She ordered tea at the counter, then slid into the seat across from him. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I'm not sure why I did. Because you're not the kind of person who can live with lying forever. I remember that about you." Derek wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, needing something to hold onto. "What exactly do you want from me?" Isabella pulled out a tablet from her bag and opened it to a news article. The headline read "Local teen sentenced in hit and run case." The date was from 12 years ago. Late August. There was a photo of a young man being led into a courthouse, his head down, shame written across his face. "That's Carlos," Isabella said. "My brother. He was 18 that summer. Just graduated high school. Had a scholarship to State University lined up. Everything ahead of him." Derek remembered Carlos. Tall, athletic, always protective of his younger sister. A good guy, the kind who would help you change a flat tire or split his last sandwich with you. The article says he was driving the car that hit those 2 people on Route 27. Isabella continued. "Left them injured on the side of the road and drove away. He got convicted of hit and run. Served 2 years in juvenile detention because he was just barely 18. Lost his scholarship, his reputation, everything. I remember hearing about that." Derek said carefully. It was all anyone talked about at the end of that summer. But here's what the article doesn't say. Isabella swiped to another document, this one a legal report. Carlos wasn't driving that car. He wasn't even in it. Derek's coffee cup clinked as he set it down to hard. What? He took the blame for someone else. Someone whose family had money and connections and the ability to make problems disappear. Someone who convinced my brother that if he just said he was driving, everything would be fine. They get him a good lawyer, make sure he got minimal time, maybe even community service. That's not what happened though. No, Isabella said, her voice tight. That's not what happened. Because once Carlos confessed, those people disappeared like smoke. His public defender was overwhelmed with cases and barely put up a fight. The judge wanted to make an example out of reckless teen drivers. 2 years became his reality. Derek felt sweat forming on his palms. He knew where this was going, and he didn't want to hear it. Isabella leaned forward, her hands flat on the table between them. You were at the bonfire that night, Derek. The last night of summer, when everything fell apart. I know you were there because I was supposed to meet you there. I got held up helping my mom with something, arrived late. By the time I got there, police lights were already flashing down the beach and everyone was scattering. There were lots of people at that bonfire, but not many who saw what happened before the accident. Not many who saw whose car it really was, who was actually driving drunk, who decided to take Route 27 racing like idiots. Isabella's eyes were fierce now. Derek, I've spent 12 years piecing this together, talking to people who were there, following breadcrumbs, and everything points back to that night, to what happened before the crash. Derek's mind was racing. He did remember. God help him, he remembered everything. The bonfire blazing against the dark sky, music from someone's speakers, the taste of beer he was too young to be drinking, and then the argument between 4 boys. All of them from families with vacation houses worth more than most people's annual salaries. There was a fight, Derek heard himself saying, the words coming out before he could stop them. About a girl, I think. Or maybe about something stupid like who had a better car. I don't remember exactly why, but you remember what happened after. Derek closed his eyes. Tyler Bennett and his friends. They were drunk, really drunk. Tyler's dad had just bought him this expensive sports car for graduation, red. I remember it was red because it reflected the firelight. Keep going, Isabella urged gently. They were showing off, doing donuts in the sand. Then Tyler said something about racing to the pier and back. Some of the other guys egged him on. Carlos tried to stop them, said they were too drunk, that someone was going to get hurt. What did Tyler do? Derek opened his eyes, meeting Isabella's gaze. He laughed, called Carlos a coward. Then he and 3 other guys got in that red car and took off. We heard the tires squealing on the road, and then maybe 5 minutes later, we heard sirens. The cafe suddenly fell to quiet. Derek could hear his own heartbeat, loud in his ears. The next day, everyone was talking about how Carlos had been arrested. Derek continued, how he'd stolen a car and hit those people and ran. But that didn't make sense because Carlos was at the bonfire with us. He never left. I remember being confused, asking my friends about it. And then what? Derek's mouth went dry. And then Tyler's father showed up at our rental house. Said he'd heard I was at the beach that night. Asked me what I saw. I was 17, scared. This man was a lawyer, rich, powerful. He sat in our living room and explained very carefully that Carlos had confessed, that the case was closed, and that spreading rumors or false information could be considered slander. My parents were right there, looking worried. So I said I didn't see anything. I didn't know anything. Isabella reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of touching his. Tyler's father threatened you. He didn't have to threaten directly. I was smart enough to understand what he was really saying. That his family could make life very difficult for my family. That the truth didn't matter as much as the story everyone had agreed to believe. And you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet, Derek admitted, shame burning in his chest. I told myself it wasn't my problem. That Carlos must have had his reasons for confessing. That maybe I didn't actually see what I thought I saw. I went home at the end of summer and tried to forget the whole thing. Isabella sat back, her expression unreadable. Carlos took the blame because Tyler's father promised to take care of his family. We weren't wealthy. My mom was working 2 jobs. My dad had medical bills from his diabetes. They offered to pay off everything, promised Carlos a job when he got out, swore he'd serve minimal time. My brother was trying to protect us, but they didn't keep their promises, not a single one. Once Carlos signed the confession, we never heard from them again. My mom tried calling, but they wouldn't take her calls. Carlos served his full sentence. When he got out, he had a criminal record. No college, no job prospects. That was 12 years ago, and he's been fighting ever since. Derek felt like he might be sick. Why are you telling me this now? Why come back into my life after all this time? Isabella pulled out another document, sliding it across the table. Because Carlos is finally appealing his case. There's a new district attorney who's reviewing old cases for potential miscarriages of justice. But we need evidence. We need testimony from people who were actually there that night. We need the truth. Derek stared at the paper without really seeing it. If I come forward now, after 12 years of silence, who's going to believe me? You won't be alone. I've found other people who were there who are willing to talk. But Derek, you're the crucial one. You saw Tyler get into that car. You saw him drive away drunk. And you have no connection to our family, no obvious reason to lie. Your testimony matters. This will ruin my life, Derek said quietly. Tyler Bennett is a successful lawyer now, just like his father. They have money, power, connections. If I accuse them of covering up a crime, they'll come after you, Isabella finished. I know. Believe me, I've thought about this. I've weighed what I'm asking you to do. Then why are you asking? Isabella's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. Because my brother has spent 12 years in a prison of shame and failure that he doesn't deserve. Because I watched him go from a kid with dreams to a man who can barely look at himself in the mirror. Because the truth matters, Derek, even when it's hard, even when it costs us something. She leaned close across the table, close enough that he could see the desperation and hope and determination, all mixed together in her face. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. So I need to ask you this, and I need you to really think before you answer. Are you ready for the truth about us? Not just about what happened that night, but about who we really are when it matters most. Are you someone who can live with silence? Or are you someone who's been dying slowly under the weight of it? Derek sat frozen, her question hanging in the air between them like something physical and unmovable. Outside the cafe window, the city was waking up, people rushing to work, living their ordinary lives, unaware that in this quiet corner, everything was about to change. Derek asked for time to think. Isabella gave him 3 days? Those 72 hours felt like the longest of his life. He went through the motions at work, attending meetings and reviewing campaigns, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time he saw Isabella in the office, professionally directing the creative team, he remembered her question. Are you ready for the truth about us? The third night, Derek found himself driving. He didn't plan to, didn't consciously decide on a destination, but somehow he ended up on the highway heading toward Ocean Ridge. It was a 2-hour drive, and he arrived just as the sun was setting over the water. The town had changed. More hotels, fancier restaurants, higher prices. But the beach was the same sand, the same waves, the same pier stretching out into the water. Derek walked along the shore, his shoes sinking into the soft sand, and let the memories wash over him. He found the spot where they used to have bonfires. There was nothing there now, just smooth sand and scattered shells. But standing there, Derek could almost smell the smoke, hear the laughter, see Sophia running toward him with her hair wild in the wind. That summer had been magic until it wasn't. He'd been young enough to believe that nothing bad could touch him, that consequences were for other people. And when reality came crashing down, he'd chosen the easy path, the safe path, the coward's path. Derek pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long time. Then he dialed a number he'd looked up earlier that day. Bennett Law Offices. How may I direct your call? Tyler Bennett, please. There was a pause, some clicking. Then a familiar voice, deeper now but still recognizable. This is Tyler Bennett. It's Derek Coleman. We knew each other a long time ago. Ocean Ridge, summer of 2013. Silence. Then, carefully, I remember. How can I help you? I need to ask you about something that happened that summer. The accident on Route 27. The hit and run. The silence that followed was different, colder. That case was closed 12 years ago. There's nothing to discuss. Carlos Rodriguez didn't drive that car. We both know it. Carlos Rodriguez confessed and was convicted. If you're calling to make accusations, I should tell you that slander is a serious matter. There it was, the same threat his father had made, wrapped in professional language. But Derek had spent 3 days preparing for this moment, and he found that 12 years of silence had made him tired. Tired of carrying the weight. Tired of being scared. "I was there," Derek said quietly. "I saw you get in your father's red sports car. I saw you drive away drunk with 3 other guys. And I saw you stumble back to the bonfire 20 minutes later without the car. Scared and sobering up fast. Carlos wasn't even there when you left. You're remembering wrong." "No, I'm not. And I'm not the only one who remembers. There are others." "Derek," Tyler's voice changed, became almost friendly. "Listen, I understand. Sometimes memories get confused over time. You probably saw something that night, but it was dark, everyone was drinking. Mistakes happen. The good news is, it's all in the past. Carlos served his time. It's done. No reason to stir up old stories now, except Carlos's life was destroyed. And he didn't do what he was convicted of. He confessed. That's on him. Look, I'll be honest with you. My father helped resolve that situation in a way that was best for everyone. Carlos came from a difficult background. He was heading down a bad path anyway. What happened probably saved him from worse choices down the line." Derek felt anger rising in his chest. "You really believe that? You really think destroying someone's future because they took the fall for you was somehow helping them? I think you need to be very careful about what you say next," Tyler said, his voice hardening. "I'm a lawyer. My firm has resources. If you start making accusations, we will protect our reputation. And I should mention, I have friends in the media and law enforcement in places that matter. Your life could become very complicated very quickly. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Think about what you have to lose. Your job, your reputation, your peace of mind. For what? Some misguided sense of justice about something that happened when we were kids." Derek looked out at the ocean, watching the waves catch the last rays of sunlight. "Yeah," he said finally. For exactly that, he hung up before Tyler could respond. His hands were shaking. But underneath the fear was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. He'd spent 12 years hiding from that summer, and now he just stepped directly into the light. Derek called Isabella. She answered on the second ring. "I'm in," he said. "Tell me what I need to do." There was a pause, and when she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "You're sure? Because once we start this, there's no going back, I'm sure. I should have done this 12 years ago. Thank you," she whispered. "Derek, thank you." Over the next 2 weeks, Derek met with Isabella and a lawyer she'd hired. Her name was Patricia Wolfe, and she specialized in wrongful conviction cases. She was tough, efficient, and cautiously optimistic about their chances. The main issue, Patricia explained during their first meeting, is that Carlos confessed. That's a huge hurdle. But if we can show that his confession was coerced, that he was promised things that never materialized, and that there were witnesses who saw someone else commit the crime, we have a shot. Derek gave a detailed statement about everything he remembered from that night. The fight, the drinking, Tyler getting into the red sports car, the sirens. Patricia recorded every word, asked questions, pushed for details he'd forgotten he remembered. "What you're doing is brave," Patricia said when they finished. "But I need you to understand what's coming. The Bennett family will fight back. They have money and lawyers, and they've spent 12 years believing this story is buried. They won't give up easily. I know. Do you have a lawyer of your own? Because I'd recommend getting one. Just in case." That's when Derek realized how serious this was going to get. He found an attorney, a woman named Lisa Chen who specialized in defamation defense. Her first question was whether Derek had any proof of what he was claiming. "Just my memory and my word," Derek admitted. "That might not be enough to protect you if they come after you hard. But it's a start. Document everything from now on. Every conversation, every interaction. If anyone threatens you, record it if it's legal in your state." Derek's life began to split into 2 parallel tracks. During the day, he went to work, did his job, tried to act normal. Isabella maintained her professional distance in the office, never mentioning their after-hours collaboration. But in the evenings, Derek met with lawyers, reviewed documents, and prepared for what was coming. The other two witnesses Patricia had mentioned were people Derek vaguely remembered from that summer. Riley had been a local kid who worked at the ice cream shop. Jordan had been vacationing with family, same as Derek. Both had seen Tyler and his friends leave in the car. Both had been too scared to speak up at the time. Why now? Derek asked Riley when they met at Patricia's office. Why are you willing to talk after all this time? Riley, now 30 years old with a job as a construction foreman, shrugged. I've got kids now, 2 daughters. I keep thinking about what I'd want someone to do if my girls were in Carlos's position. And I figure maybe I can sleep better at night if I finally do the right thing. Jordan, who'd become a teacher, had a similar answer. I teach history. I'm always telling my students that silence in the face of injustice is its own form of participation in that injustice. Kind of hypocritical to preach that if I'm not willing to live it, right? The three of them, strangers bound by one summer night 12 years ago, became an unlikely team. They met regularly, compared memories, filled in gaps in each other's stories. Together, they built a timeline of that night that Patricia said was compelling. But then things started happening. Derek's car got keyed in his apartment parking lot. Riley received a call at work from someone claiming to be from the IRS, asking suspicious questions about his taxes. Jordan found out that someone had filed a complaint with her school district about inappropriate conduct, completely fabricated but requiring investigation. It's starting, Lisa told Derek. They're trying to intimidate you, scare you into backing down. It's working, Derek admitted. I'm scared, but I'm not backing down. One evening, Derek came home to find his apartment door slightly open. Nothing was missing, nothing damaged, but someone had definitely been inside. The message was clear. We can get to you whenever we want. He called Isabella, his hands shaking as he dialed. They were in my apartment, he said when she answered. Are you okay? Are you safe? I don't know. I don't know if I'm okay. Give me your address. I'm coming over. She arrived 20 minutes later with takeout food and a determination that made Derek feel slightly less alone. They sat in his living room, eating cold Chinese food neither of them really wanted, and talked. You can still back out, Isabella said quietly. I would understand. This is getting dangerous. If I back out, what happens to Carlos? We still have Riley and Jordan. Maybe that's enough, but you came to me first for a reason. My testimony matters, Isabella nodded. Yeah, it does. You have no connection to our family. You're a witness who gains nothing from lying. That makes you credible in a way the rest of us aren't. Derek set down his food and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was exhausted. He could see it in her eyes. The legal process moved slowly, then all at once. Patricia filed a motion for Carlos to appeal his conviction, presenting new evidence in the form of witness statements from Derek, Riley, and Jordan. The local news picked up the story. New witnesses come forward in 12-year-old hit and run case. Derek's phone exploded with calls. Friends from that summer, curious. Family members, worried. Colleagues, confused about why he was suddenly in the news. And his fiancée, Vanessa, who he'd been dating for 2 years and who knew nothing about any of this. She showed up at his apartment the day after the news broke. Her face tight with hurt and confusion. 12 years you've been carrying this secret, she said, standing in his doorway like she wasn't sure she wanted to come inside. 2 years we've been together, talking about marriage, planning a future. And you never mentioned any of this? It's not something I'm proud of, Derek said weakly. That's not an excuse for lying. For hiding. I thought I knew you. You do know me, do I? Vanessa's voice cracked. Because the man I thought I knew wouldn't have stayed silent, while an innocent person went to prison. And if he did, he wouldn't have hidden it from someone he claims to love. Derek had no defense because she was right. He built their relationship on a foundation of omission, letting her believe he was a better person than he actually was. I'm trying to make it right now, he offered, 12 years late, and apparently only because an old girlfriend showed up and asked you to. Vanessa shook her head. I can't do this, Derek. I can't build a life with someone who keeps these kinds of secrets. Someone I can't trust. She left the ring on his counter and walked out. Derek watched her go, feeling the weight of consequence settling on his shoulders. This was just the beginning. Work became complicated too. His boss called him in for a meeting, closed the door, and asked directly whether Derek's involvement in this case would affect his job performance or the company's reputation. "I'm testifying to what I witnessed," Derek said carefully. "Nothing more. The Bennett family is well connected in this city. Some of their companies are our clients. This puts the firm in an awkward position. Are you asking me to back out?" His boss hesitated. "I'm asking you to consider all the implications of your actions." I'm moving forward. Then I need to be honest with you. Your position here may become untenable depending on how this plays out. I'm not saying you'd be fired, but things could get uncomfortable." Derek understood what that meant. He started quietly updating his resume. The Bennett family fought back through their lawyers. They issued statements calling the new witnesses unreliable, their memories corrupted by time and outside influence. They accused Isabella of manipulating vulnerable people to attack a respected family. They brought up Derek's own history, the underage drinking at that party, his subsequent silence, questioning why he was suddenly remembering things so differently after 12 years. Tyler Bennett himself gave an interview to the local news. Confident, polished, sympathetic. "This is clearly a difficult situation. My heart goes out to the Rodriguez family and what they've been through. But the facts of the case were established 12 years ago. Carlos Rodriguez confessed because he was guilty. These new accusations are nothing more than a desperate attempt to rewrite history. My family and I are confident the justice system will once again reach the right conclusion." It was a masterful performance. Reasonable, compassionate, convincing. Derek watched it and felt doubt creeping in. Maybe his memory was wrong. Maybe he was being manipulated. Maybe he should just walk away. Then Isabella sent him a video. It was old, grainy, clearly recorded on someone's phone from that summer. Just random clips from the beach, kids laughing and playing in the waves. And there, for maybe 3 seconds, was Carlos, smiling, throwing a football, looking like a kid with his whole life ahead of him. This is who he was, Isabella's text said. This is what they took from him. Derek's doubt evaporated. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for a Friday in October. Derek took the day off work and arrived at the courthouse early. The building was intimidating, all marble and authority and the weight of justice. He found Patricia outside the courtroom, reviewing notes. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I've been better. I've been worse." The judge today is going to decide whether there's enough new evidence to warrant reopening the case. Our goal is to convince her that justice may have been miscarried, and that Carlos deserves another hearing. What are our chances? Honest answer, 50-50. We have compelling witness testimony, but we're fighting against a signed confession. It could go either way. Riley and Jordan arrived together, both looking as nervous as Derek felt. The three of them stood in the hallway, not saying much, just drawing strength from each other's presence. Then Isabella arrived with Carlos. This was Derek's first time seeing him since that summer. Carlos had aged hard, the kind of aging that comes from stress and struggle rather than just time. He was thinner than Derek remembered, his shoulders curved like he was carrying a physical weight. But his eyes were clear and grateful when they landed on Derek. "I don't know what to say," Carlos said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you doesn't seem like enough. You tried to stop those guys from driving drunk." Derek replied, "You were the only one brave enough to speak up. You shouldn't have paid the price for that. I made the choice to confess. I thought I was protecting people. Turns out I was just naive. You were protecting us. All of us. And we let you pay for it. That's on us, not you." The courtroom doors opened. It was time. The hearing was technical and formal, nothing like the dramatic court scenes from TV. Lawyers presented arguments. The judge asked questions. Patricia spoke eloquently about new evidence and potential wrongful conviction. The Bennett family's lawyer countered with the strength of the original confession and the unreliability of decade-old memories. When it came time for witnesses, Derek was called first. He walked to the stand, was sworn in, and faced the room full of people whose lives would be affected by what he said next. He could see Tyler Bennett sitting with his father, both of them in expensive suits. radiating confidence. He could see Isabella and Carlos holding hands like they were keeping each other anchored. He could see Vanessa, surprisingly, sitting in the back row, her face unreadable. Patricia asked him to describe what he remembered from that night. Derek took a breath and told the truth, all of it. The bonfire, the drinking, Tyler's bragging about his new car, the fight, the race challenge. Watching Tyler and three friends get in that red sports car and speed away. Carlos trying to stop them and failing. The sirens 5 minutes later. Tyler returning on foot, scared and pale, and no longer drunk, but sobering up fast in the face of real consequences. The Bennett lawyer cross-examined him aggressively, trying to poke holes in his memory, questioning why he waited so long, suggesting his testimony was influenced by Isabella. Isn't it true you had a romantic relationship with the defendant's sister that summer? Yes, and isn't it true that Ms. Rodriguez approached you first about testifying? Not the other way around? Yes, so you have personal reasons to want to help her family, regardless of what the actual truth is? Derek looked at Carlos, then back at the lawyer. I have personal reasons to feel guilty for staying silent. But what I saw that night is the truth, whether it helps the Rodriguez family or not. Tyler Bennett was driving that car. Carlos Rodriguez wasn't. That's what happened. Riley and Jordan gave similar testimony. Their stories aligned with Derek's, creating a consistent picture of that night that contradicted the official record. When the testimonies were done, the judge called for a brief recess to review the materials. Those 20 minutes felt eternal. Derek sat on a bench in the hallway, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. Vanessa approached him, which he hadn't expected. That took courage, she said quietly. What you just did in there, too little, too late, maybe. But it's still something. She paused, seeming to struggle with her words. I'm still angry with you, still hurt, but I also understand better now why you did what you did. Being 17 and scared, facing powerful people who could ruin your family. That's not an easy position. It doesn't excuse the silence. No, it doesn't, but it explains it. And watching you up there, knowing what this is costing you, what you're willing to lose to do the right thing now, that says something about who you really are. Before Derek could respond, the bailiff called them back into the courtroom. The judge looked tired when she began speaking. I've reviewed all the testimony and evidence presented today. This is an unusual case. We have a signed confession that formed the basis of the original conviction. However, we also have multiple witnesses who were present that night providing a substantially different account of events. Their testimonies are consistent with each other and sufficiently detailed to warrant serious consideration. Derek's heart was pounding so hard he could barely hear over it. The question before me today is not whether Carlos Rodriguez is innocent or guilty. That's not what this hearing determines. The question is whether there is enough new and credible evidence to suggest that justice may not have been properly served, and therefore whether the case deserves to be reopened and examined more thoroughly. She paused, and in that pause, the entire future hung suspended. The full hearing took 6 months to prepare. 6 months of depositions, investigations, and media coverage. The story grew beyond their small town, picked up by state news, then national news. Wrongful conviction case highlights privilege, injustice read one headline. 3 witnesses challenged 12-year-old verdict read another. The Bennett family's strategy was clear: destroy the credibility of the witnesses. Private investigators dug into Derek's life, Riley's life, Jordan's life, looking for anything that could be used against them. They found plenty. Derek's college drinking incidents, Riley's messy divorce 3 years ago, Jordan's speeding tickets, and one arrest for protesting outside an oil company that had gotten dismissed. None of it was particularly damning, but it was enough to create doubt. The Bennett lawyers painted all 3 of them as unreliable, possibly coordinated, definitely biased against a wealthy family. Derek's life continued to unravel in slow motion. His firm didn't fire him, but they didn't need to. He was quietly removed from major accounts, given lesser assignments, made to feel unwelcome in subtle ways. He started job hunting, but found that his name now came with baggage. Employers were hesitant to take on someone embroiled in a high-profile legal case. His family was supportive but worried. His mother called weekly, asking if he was sure about what he was doing, reminding him that it wasn't too late to back away. His father said less, but Derek could hear the concern in his silences. The only bright spot was the unlikely friendship that formed between Derek, Riley, and Jordan. Three strangers bonded by consequence and conscience. They met regularly, supporting each other through the pressure, reminding each other why this mattered when the weight of it threatened to crush them. Tyler Bennett gave more interviews, always composed, always reasonable, positioning himself as the victim of a vindictive campaign. His father appeared on news programs talking about how false accusations can destroy lives. The irony apparently lost on him entirely. But then cracks started to appear in their perfect facade. One of the friends who'd been in the car that night, a man named Preston who now worked in finance, reached out to Patricia's office. He wanted to talk, off the record at first, then maybe on the record if he could be guaranteed protection. Derek was present when Preston gave his statement, sitting behind a one-way mirror in Patricia's office. Preston looked like his conscience had been eating him alive for 12 years, which it probably had. I was in the car, Preston said quietly, his hands shaking. Tyler was driving. We were all drunk, but Tyler was the worst. He'd been drinking since noon, celebrating his graduation. We told him not to drive, but he wouldn't listen. He never listened when he got like that. What happened on Route 27? Patricia asked. Tyler was going at least 70 in a 45 zone, swerving between lanes. We were all yelling at him to slow down. Then there were these two people on bikes, right at the edge of the road. Older couple, just out for an evening ride. Tyler didn't see them until too late. He swerved, clipped the back of one of the bikes. We heard the crash, heard someone screaming. Tyler just kept driving. Why didn't you stop? We wanted to. Jordan Walker, one of the guys in the back seat, he was begging Tyler to go back. But Tyler's father had drummed into him what to do if anything ever happened. Get home. Don't talk to anyone. Let him handle it. So that's what we did. Tyler drove us to his house. We all went inside. And within an hour his father had shown up with a plan. What was the plan? Preston's voice dropped. Find someone to take the blame. Someone who didn't have the resources to fight back. Tyler's father knew Carlos Rodriguez had been at the bonfire. Knew his family was struggling financially. He approached Carlos that night, made him an offer. Take the blame, serve minimal time, come out with money and a clean start. Carlos was trying to protect his family, trying to help his sick father. He actually believed the promises. Why are you coming forward now? Because I have kids. Twin boys, just turned 16. I look at them and I think about Carlos, about how his whole life got stolen. And I think about what kind of man I'm teaching my sons to be if I stay quiet. I've had 12 years to live with what we did. That's 12 years more than Carlos got to live his real life. Preston's testimony changed everything. He had details only someone in the car would know. The color of the bikes, the fact that the older man had been wearing a yellow reflective vest, the sound the mirror made when it broke off Tyler's car. Details that matched the accident report exactly. The Bennett lawyers went into crisis mode. They tried to discredit Preston, suggested he'd been coached, argued that his memory was unreliable. But Preston had something else, his journal from that summer. He'd been seeing a therapist after the accident, dealing with guilt, and his therapist had suggested he write about it. Pages and pages of entries from that summer, including a detailed account written just 3 days after the accident. When everything was still fresh, I couldn't show this to anyone, Preston explained. I was afraid of what would happen to me, but I kept it. I think because part of me always knew I'd have to face this someday. The new hearing date was set. This time it wasn't just about whether to reopen the case. It was about overturning Carlos's conviction entirely. The night before the hearing, Derek couldn't sleep. He lay in bed watching the ceiling, thinking about all the dominoes that had fallen to get to this point. One summer night, one terrible decision, and then 12 years of consequences spreading outward like ripples in water. His phone rang at 2 in the morning. Isabella, you awake? She asked. Yeah, me too. Can't stop thinking about tomorrow. About what happens if we win. If we lose, what does Carlos want? Derek asked. He says he just wants his name cleared. Doesn't even care about going after the Bennett family legally. Though Patricia says we'd have grounds. He just wants to be able to apply for jobs without that conviction hanging over him. To maybe go back to school. To live like a normal person. That's not too much to ask. It shouldn't be. But it took 12 years and 3 strangers willing to blow up their own lives to make it possible. They were quiet for a moment, both of them holding their phones in the darkness. Connected by history and circumstance, Derek, Isabella said softly, "Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. You gave my brother hope. For the first time in 12 years, he actually believes things might get better. That's worth everything to me. I should have done it sooner. But you're doing it now. That matters." After they hung up, Derek finally fell asleep, and for the first time in months. He didn't have nightmares. The courtroom was packed the next day. More reporters than Derek had ever seen, filling every seat, cameras lined up in the back. The judge was different this time, older, known for being fair but tough. The hearing took most of the day. All the evidence was presented again, but now with Preston's testimony and journal added. The Bennett lawyers fought hard, but Derek could see they were losing ground. The facts were just too consistent, too detailed, too damning. Carlos took the stand near the end. He was asked to explain why he confessed if he didn't commit the crime. "I was 18 years old." Carlos said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "My father had diabetes, complications that required expensive treatment. We were already drowning in medical debt. My mother was working 2 jobs and still couldn't keep up. When Mr. Bennett came to me that night and said I could help my family by taking responsibility, then I'd serve minimal time and come out with enough money to get my dad proper care. I didn't think twice. Family was everything to me, still is, but the promises weren't kept, no. Once I signed the confession, they disappeared. I served my full sentence. My father died while I was inside, never got the treatment that might have saved him. And when I got out, I had nothing. No education, no job prospects, a criminal record that followed me everywhere. For 12 years I've been living with the consequences of trying to do the right thing. For my family, do you regret your decision?" Carlos paused, and Derek saw him look at Isabella in the gallery. "I regret that my confession let guilty people go free. I regret that it taught powerful people they can buy their way out of consequences. But I don't regret trying to save my father. I'd do anything for my family." The closing arguments were delivered. Patricia spoke about justice delayed but not denied. The Bennett lawyers spoke about the sanctity of confessions and the danger of overturning convictions, based on decades-old memories. Then the judge called for a recess to make her decision. It lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of waiting in hallways, pacing, checking phones, and avoiding reporters' questions. Finally, they were called back. The judge looked at Carlos directly when she spoke. "Mr. Rodriguez, 12 years ago you made a choice that, while motivated by love for your family, resulted in a grave miscarriage of justice. However, the evidence presented in this hearing clearly demonstrates that you did not commit the crime for which you were convicted. Multiple credible witnesses have testified that you were not in the vehicle during the hit-and-run incident. Additional testimony from someone who was in the vehicle has corroborated this. The journal entries are compelling and detailed contemporary evidence." Derek held his breath. "Based on all the evidence before me, I'm overturning your conviction. Your record,